All right, folks, let me go ahead and turn my video around. Every time I do this, I have a hard time with this. Okay. Welcome, good evening, folks. As folks begin filtering in, I'm actually just simply trying to figure out how the hell to change my video around, and that doesn't seem to be coming to pass here. Give me 1 second. I don't know why the hell. Okay. Why the hell can't I do this right? Okay, there we go. Sorry about that, folks. All right. Okay, tonight we're going to be asking a question. We talked about this earlier. The state of Ohio has now legalized teachers carrying firearms into the classroom. And we're going to start out immediately opening up the box, talking to folks. Do you agree with something like this? This is around your children. You have no clue what type of training the teacher has received. You have no clue if the teacher is even going to answer the call of duty to begin with. How do you feel about educators having firearms in class around your children, some way, somehow acting as the first and last line of defense for your child against an unknown assailant? And this is under the condition that generally most of them will be underarmed. A lot of these assailants are showing up at schools when they commit these mass casualty events with long rifles. In fact, I believe Virginia Tech is one of the only cases where a mass shooter showed up with a pistol, and he showed up with two. So looking at the comments, just do what anyone in Pennsylvania needs to do. Act 235. I'm not quite familiar with that act in Epi Zombie, but okay, pretty sure most teachers did not sign up to be armed security. And I tend to agree with that gifted. I certainly agree with that gifted kid. Looking at the comments real quick, abolish the two-party system. That's not going to solve what we're talking about here. If you want to talk about term limits and things like that, hey, we can certainly discuss that. But in regards to what we're speaking of today, the state of Ohio has legalized allowing teachers to carry firearms in classrooms. And I'm asking you, if you are a parent and you had a child in elementary school, a child in high school, would you feel more secure with that? Or would you agree with it at all? I see some folks are coming in pretty hard. Where that's coming from, but looking at the comments here, put in auto turrets. You guys are pretty damn wild at this point. Let me see. So I do see. I guess Tebow, you're suggesting that, or you're actually agreeing with firearms around your children. Now, the other question I'm going to ask is: would you hold the teacher responsible under a serious attack? Would you demand that the teacher would you demand that the teacher defend your child? Let's say, for instance, someone came into school, started harming students. The teacher you knew was armed, but the teacher cowered and fled to school and left behind your children or your child, and your child was slaughtered. Would you hold the teacher accountable for that? Would you hold a teacher accountable if they ran for their life and they survived the incident and your child did not, knowing that teacher had a firearm? What if a teacher actually shoots someone too? And that's another good question. That is another good question. What about blue on blue incidents, friendly fire? Whereas you can hear gunfire in the school. You have a teacher that wants to be George Zimmerman or Kyle Rittenhouse, a teacher that wants to be a hero, steps out into the hallway looking for the shooter, and the first thing the teacher sees is another teacher or student running across the hall and takes a shot at them and hits that innocent party. Do you hold a teacher accountable for that? Folks, at the end of the day, these are not trained military personnel. I understand we want heroes, we want our children protected, but these are not highly trained folks. You think about your high school teacher, your first grade teacher. Does that look like Rambo to you? The box is open, folks. If you want to come in and talk about it, I'm just curious to see where parents are on this issue, because the state of Ohio has indeed legalized and allowing teachers at will to carry firearms into the classroom. I have not heard of any requirement that they show any proficiency or training on the weapon. So it could get to be pretty interesting. Tactical. Let's make it happen in the box. Okay. JM Tactical. Can you the last? What did that say? The last shooting, they had 4 doors on the classrooms, and the teacher did not have the keys. Wow, that is distressing. JM4 Tactical. Good evening. Can you hear me? Okay, I'm okay. Can you hear me, sir?
Hey, first of all, teachers are trained. Here,
Teachers are teachers. Is there? So you're suggesting that there is required firearms training for teachers that carry guns in class?
requirement for teachers to carry guns in classrooms. There's so much training they have to be required to do. They are majority of them in the state of Texas. When they carry, they are actually TICO. They're actually licensed peace officers that are coaches, that are teachers, math teachers, principals. They go through TICO. So they are very well trained, but they're also educators.
Okay, so in other words, this does not apply to just simply any teacher that wants to carry a firearm.
No. They're not going to just give a teacher a firearm and let them run freely in a school around your kids. That is insane.
Well, there are plenty of folks who are suggesting, just like in the real world, where you have no training required. You can in the
No.
real world, in the real world, if you want to carry a firearm, as long as you don't have a criminal record, you can carry a firearm. If you're going to the park or the playground with your child, you can go to the park or the playground with your child.
Okay.
So you are essentially around
That is
children with a firearm and no training.
okay. That is the difference between a Second Amendment right to be able to protect yourself and your family and being able to carry a gun in a school to protect other people's children.
So let me ask you this then. You're talking about carrying a gun in a school to protect other people's children. So if the teacher is carrying a gun in the school and something happens, are they obligated to protect the children?
In the state of Texas, no, but they are assigned that duty. Therefore, and I'll explain something to you. A school marshal in the state of Texas knows these kids by name. They spend time with these kids. They're with these kids 5 days a week. They see these kids as family. They are trained to take and secure a school. They are trained. An active threat is usually in a school. Now, we're not talking about validity. FBI statistics, 3 to 5 minutes. Okay, 3 to 5 minutes in a school or in a building. An active threat is any building 3 to 5 minutes. Okay, and we say
Okay,
active threat
hold
because
on, hang on. I'll let you finish. Real quick in the comments, Logan, I get that you do not like Biden. I see the Let's Go Brandon. I'm free speech all day, but you don't have to keep typing the same thing over and over again. At some point, that becomes spamming. I get the FJB and all of that, but you've typed it about 8 times. So your point has been well taken. Okay, continue, JM4.
all right. So these teachers are they're going to be licensed by TICO, so they're going to be through the law enforcement side of it. They are going to they carry guns. They go through monthly training. They shoot so many rounds a month. An active threat is in a building. And when I say an active threat, because an active threat is either a knife, a gun, whatever the situation is, whether they're using a U-Haul truck, a Ford truck, or whatever. An active threat is in a building 3 to 5 minutes. Okay. By the time police officers respond, that active threat should already be put down and done and over with.
Okay. So,
Okay.
so I guess the question I'm at, you stated that the teachers would be assigned certain areas or certain classrooms, but at the same time, you stated they are not obligated to protect the children. They just happen to know them by name and have a first name basis
No,
with them.
they take
But
on that role and that's the thing is a teacher is not obligated to carry a gun. When they ask teachers who wants to be a school marshal, who wants to protect this school, they then volunteer themselves. Okay. And they are under the understanding that they could possibly lose their life protecting other kids.
Okay,
They
it
training.
goes further than let me. I'm gonna let you finish, but I guess the question I'm trying to find out is when you think about what teachers earn for a living. Why would you want to take on not only protecting the children and putting yourself in a potentially lethal environment, but other mistakes, other responsibility for handling the firearm? You're taking on a hell of a lot for zero increase in pay. I
No,
mean,
they get
even
it.
to even in regards to insurance. I mean, things can go wrong because you are taking on this protector position, and
Now,
there's
school
zero
marshals.
compensation for that.
No, school marshals do get paid a little bit more. It's probably not where it needs to be, but you don't have to take on that risk. You don't have to. It is a volunteer thing that you want to do and go through the training and go through the education and go through everything. See, Texas House Bill 1009 covers all that. They help pay for all that training. They pay for their ammo. They pay for them to be school marshals. Okay, and then they that's why you volunteer. Okay, I'm gonna ask you a question. Do you have kids that live next door to you?
Yes.
Okay, do you know them by name?
No, actually, I do not. And I've been here for
You're not a
10
good
years.
neighbor.
Fair enough.
Okay,
Well, let me say this. Let me say I do know some of them. I don't know
okay.
all of
What
the
about your?
children in my area, but I do know some.
Okay, what about your family kids? Your kids and your family. Would you go above and beyond to protect those kids if somebody was
Yeah,
trying to
because
harm them?
that's family. Yes, that's family.
Okay, these teachers are with these kids 5 days a week. They see them as family.
Okay, I guess I will say this. I could see where plenty of teachers would be willing to do what you're
Yes.
suggesting, but I could
We
also see
work with
other
school
teachers.
marshals. I work with school marshals. We work with school guardians. We work with church guardians. We know their mentality. We know their training. And when they step up, they are under the understanding that they are going to put their life in front of other people's lives. They're going to put their lives, and if they lose their life to protect another kid or
I,
another.
you know, let me just say this. You may know some teachers like that, but I don't think we can speak for every teacher in the
No, we
country.
can't speak for every teacher. That's why it's on volunteer basis.
Okay. You
They're
know
not
something?
forcing
What
these
if a
teachers to carry. They're saying, hey, and
so
you know what? They don't have to look like Rambo. I know teachers out there that look like Betty White that would run a range like nothing.
let me ask you this. Okay, fair enough. Let me ask you this. Let's say a teacher offered to be a marshal or some type of protector, when in reality they had simply seen too many gun cases on the news, so they really just wanted to carry a firearm to protect themselves, and they
They've
knew it
got to
ahead of
go through.
time. Hold
They've
on,
got to
hold
go
on. Let
through
me
the.
finish.
Okay.
Okay,
All
let me
right.
finish. Let me finish the point, and I'll
All
let
right.
you respond. The person has seen too many mass casualty events on the news, so they actually want to carry a firearm, but secretly they only want to carry it to defend themselves. So they get permission from the school based on that they're going to protect all the children when they know they're not. An event kicks off and that person pulls out the firearm, but they find a way to escape because they were only protecting themselves. What should be done to that teacher that did not meet their duties?
That is a big question because the fact they did step up, they did volunteer, they are getting extra pay, they said, hey, I want to help protect the school. That is a big question.
It's interesting. I asked that question. Here's something funny. I asked that question uh, in the comments. Jay Walker
That's
said
one of those
nothing should be
roads, you
done.
know.
Jay Walker said nothing should be done, but right before him, Kobe said the teacher should be hung. I'm just going to say this based on the responsibility of this. I cannot see a whole lot of teachers being willing to take this responsibility on, but I could be wrong.
I mean, there's a lot more than you know because we see a lot of them
Okay.
raise their hand. There's a lot of them,
All
and like
right.
I said, they don't have to look like Rambo. I've worked with teachers that that could run a range like crazy, dead on and draw and very fast, and they looking like Betty White. They don't have to look like Rambo to take on an active threat. That's where a lot of
Okay.
people get that's where those movies come in and the misconception of movies. I mean, I know teachers out there that are very well trained with a handgun, and you would never even guess it. You by looking at them, you would never think it, but they are.
Fair. Okay. All right. Well, I got to move it on, man. I appreciate you
All right,
coming
you have a
through.
good one.
You too. You're always welcome back.
All
Okay.
right.
Here's one of the things. Go to my next caller. Here's one of the things I guess I could have told. And by the way, folks, tap my screen. I need my MAGA in here. You know who I want to talk to. So feel free to tap the screen. You know what I'm looking for. So get me up to 5,000 likes. I ask that every night. Doesn't cost you anything. Show your patriotism. You know what I'm talking about. Now, in America, most of the, I guess for lack of a better word, most of the firearm killing takes place by men. It's overwhelmingly men using firearms to take lives. But when you look at teachers, they're overwhelmingly female. And I want to run this by you before I go to my next caller, and we'll be talking about this. Do you believe teachers, because the last caller was talking about, he knows people that can, that show quite a lot of proficiency at the range and they don't look like Rambo. And he suggested you could look like Betty White. But is firearms, when it comes to women in firearms taking on this heroic role, is this something that we traditionally see from women? Even when it comes to the police force, the military, all of these roles are traditionally dominated by men. Even in a society where we now live in a society of equality, most women don't want these type of jobs. That's what's shocking me. But let me go back to let's go back to the box. I'd be really surprised. I'd really be surprised. No conservatives would rather have women teach. Wait a minute. Hang on a second.
Hey, man.
Okay. Good evening. Hang on one second. No conservatives would rather have women teachers be killers than cops doing their job. Wow. Okay. Good evening, Uncommon. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. How are you doing, boss?
I'm doing good. Have you been listening to the topic?
I have. So what we're going to be getting into now is, should women be in the position to do that as teachers, female teachers versus male shooters, basically.
No. Let me. Okay, maybe I wasn't clear with it. No, there's plenty of male teachers. So I guess I'm not making it necessarily a gender thing. I'm just simply saying that when you look at the violence in this country, for instance, I
meant against a male shooter is what I meant. A female teacher, male shooter, because you had mentioned the disproportionate violence by men.
Have we had any female mass shooters in this country?
No, if the standard is 4 more shooters that are not the shooter, or 4 more deaths that are not the shooter, no, none that I've ever seen. And I've tried to look into it. Men. So to this point, men are adapted, through evolution around a whole different set of considerations than women are. We're much more naturally aggressive, and part of this is hormones, but the hormones and the hormone levels adapt around things. So even that is still, I think, evolution and adaptation. But anyways, we're more aggressive by nature. We're more disagreeable, which means we're more concerned with our way and not that person's way. We tend to be more impulsive and take, you could say decisive and quick to action, or you can say impulsive. They're two sides of the same coin. And so there's all these various factors that I would say on average would mean men are going to be more adapted to respond to this kind of a situation than women. Not to say women can't be, but so I'm just going to say we're probably not going to see very many women doing it, but that doesn't mean they shouldn't be allowed to. And honestly, they probably shouldn't, because I firmly believe women are more valuable than men in the sense that they can have children and we can't. Like, one man could be split amongst 1,000 women to create 1,000 babies, but one woman cannot be split amongst 1,000 men to create 1,000 babies. There's an asymmetry there. So if we're going to lose a man or a woman, might as well be the man. Not that we're worth a lot less. But
logic. I haven't heard that before. Let me ask you this question, because this came from looks like Cowboy Jones in the comments. He stated, "What if a teacher cannot pull the trigger? Let's say, for instance, someone does take on this role where they're claiming to be willing to protect the children, and they are in that situation." Because let's make one thing clear, like what the previous caller was saying. The teachers know all of their children by name. So what he's suggesting is they're more likely to act because they have this bond with the students. Keep in mind, most mass casualty killers in schools, they went to the same school. So that teacher may not also have to kill somebody. that she knows by name. So this goes to Cowboy Jones' comment. What if the teacher cannot pull the trigger? What do you think about that?
Well, I mean, so if the teacher cannot, I guess I'm sort of slightly confused on what you're asking
Okay,
in
I'll
terms of what
rephrase
we
it.
do to respond to
I'll
it.
I'll, re- I'll rephrase it and I'll let you continue. If a lot of these folks who go into schools and do this, they do it to schools that they themselves attended. So the teacher
Yeah,
would have to take the life of a student that she may know the name of. Do you believe it? Because you're
gotcha.
talking about women being able to, being the creators of life. The last caller talked about women actually having a bond with the students and that making them more likely to protect the students. What if she also has a bond with the killer?
Yeah, yeah, that obviously creates a difficult situation. Um, that idea that they have a bond to their kids and that'll make them take a different level of action, that's just an individual thing. Some individuals that's true of, some that is not. Whether it be good or bad, like some people might not be extra motivated to take care of their kids, and some people might take care of everybody regardless of whether you're their kids or not. But in terms of the consequences, I guess is where more so where my mind is at of this is you should be punished if you choose. I I don't really think about the choice factor. Like if you're going to be a teacher, if you're going to be in these institutions or in any kind of a role like that, demands are being placed upon you. So saying like a limitation on those demands at some arbitrary level doesn't make sense. So like you should be forced to be competent in combat readiness. You should be taking classes just to be aware of how to protect your kids, how to protect yourself, how to navigate through things. I think if you're in that position, like proactive training and stuff like that should be mandatory.
How much?
I'd like
Okay,
to
let me
see the
ask you this.
voluntary. It should be
Okay,
voluntary first if you can get enough people with firearms to just volunteer and they're getting the training, that's good. But I do believe we just should have security in some way, with these schools as much as we
okay,
have
because
for our
I'm just
courts.
wondering, with the level of training you're suggesting, the first question I'm starting to wonder is how much more are we going to pay these teachers to do all of this? This is a significant addition to their role as a teacher. This is a
Yeah,
huge duty.
we should. I believe that compensation should be proportionate to your contribution. So if the teachers are doing this extra stuff, they should get proportionate extra money. I like the idea that um, yeah. I was about to go in a whole different direction, but basically, I think our teachers should be getting paid more. Part of the dysfunction of our current education system is that there's no differentiating between more accomplished and less accomplished teachers in a lot of areas. Like in terms of the school you go to, maybe, but like at the schools I went to, the teachers got paid more for every continuous year that they were in that school. But that was how they got paid more. It was a longevity thing. It was not a results oriented thing. I firmly, so I don't know which side of these two issues you'd be on, but I believe systemic racism is real, and I believe part of it is the education system. And so we have all sorts of barriers in our education system that keep people from being able to have the best education possible. And one of those is it's hard, the unions, and it's hard to fire individual teachers. It's hard to differentiate reward systems with the individual teachers. And so I'd like to see a scenario where it's more free market in the sense that the best teachers get the most money and the crappy teachers get fired. I'd like to move
Well,
closer to that. It
but
doesn't have to be absolute, but I want that as a functioning thing that matters.
okay. Here's the point I'm making, and I see a lot of folks in the comments saying, "Well, where's the money going to come from?" And I tend to agree. I really wish we had this much enthusiasm to simply buying the kids books, pencils, and paper. I mean, we're talking about turning teachers into, GI Jane, and we're finding all kinds of money to do that. But our educational system, before the gunfire, falls behind China, India,
Yeah,
and a host of developing countries. Maybe if we use this money in a different area, some of these kids wouldn't grow up and turn into mass killers. I don't know. I
absolutely.
think that the go ahead. Go ahead.
I was going to say the way our education system works, we'll just talk about the funding. It's property taxes mainly. So richer communities get more money per kid, poorer communities get less money per kid. And that underlying structural issue is why certain schools don't have enough paper and pens because they like the community's poor. And we're not the whole point of this thing, you would think, is pulling from rich communities to give to poor communities, but
Okay. Well, let
it's
me
all
let
chopped
me
up. So.
Okay, I'll let you continue, but let me respond to how offended are you in the comments, and we talk often. Well, friend of the program, how offended are you suggest teachers carrying weapons shouldn't cost any money if the only ones who choose to own a weapon. So the reason we're saying it's going to cost money is the training. What you're suggesting that if a person, just like in society, currently in our society, if you have no criminal record and no mental health history, you can carry a gun. You don't have to be trained. You don't even have to know how to load it. Our laws allow you to carry a gun. Under your statement, how offended are you? You're talking about putting those people in schools. But if it starts to require training, it's going to cost money. There's no other way around it. You need to be able to make sure these people are proficient to carry firearms around your children. The minute
And
you start
we
doing
only
that, it's
spend
going to
about
cost money.
we only spend about 6-7% of our government money on education as is. So it's not like we're at the 95% limit and we can't go up further. And it's also not like the administrators and a lot of the staff members at these schools are taking money out of the mouths of the teachers because they're just there by coincidence or just by necessity for paperwork. But the teachers are the ones doing the actual thing, and so that's part of it. I think everyone wants to see teachers get paid more, especially good teachers. Obviously, what they do is of supreme importance. And we want the best of the best. We want accountability. You know, when you have people in charge of a bunch of little children, watch that person like a hawk.
Okay.
You know.
Yeah. Okay. I'm gonna have to part ways with you, but I'm gonna give you the last word. I'm gonna ask you this: if a teacher while a mass casualty event is taking place, let's say a teacher gets into a gun battle with an assailant, if she accidentally hits a child or another teacher, should the school and the taxpayers be on the hook for the expenses of that accidental shooting?
Yeah. If it's accidental, assuming it was accidental, yeah, they should be. I think that like with I'm going to jump around real quick, but it comes full circle. One of the arguments against getting rid of one of the arguments against what I would call accountability for cops, getting rid of the what is it called? Whenever they can get away with crimes without any consequences, or like that qualified immunity, that issue. Oh man, I'm so sorry. I totally like got circled around in my own head trying to make that point.
I'm getting what you're saying. You said enough for me to I'm gonna offer you this, and then like I said, I gotta move it on. But I guess the point I'm getting at, and I see plenty of folks in the audience can see where I'm going with this, and that is an incredible amount of liability. You're going to get to the point where insurance companies are
Oh,
going to step in. The
the
insurance company's
police
going to step in and
the
start
police I
charging premiums.
remembered my point. The police departments can cover the cost of the legal fees for the cops, so that's not a good point. And in this situation, the school should be liable for the legal costs of the teacher. Like that should be a function of their benefits when it comes to their work that they do, not their life situation, but the work that they do. There should be a collective sort of legal team there to take care of those kinds of
Okay,
situations.
wait a minute. The police department does not cover the cost of accidental shootings. You and I cover that. They don't cover that.
Well, yeah. I mean, like that. Yeah, I meant that more so as like, okay, the taxpayers can pay for it, ultimately. But what I meant was, in the discussion about qualified immunity, one of the counter arguments is that it would raise the legal costs of individual cops if they have to keep defending themselves in court, with all these accusations. And so I was kind of skipping ahead of that and saying,
Okay.
the institution can
All
pay
right.
for that. So that's not a real point. But those are honestly, I tend to do that a lot. I'll get off right
That's
now. I'll
okay.
leave now. But I tend to
That's
do that,
okay.
jump around a lot. But I appreciate you being so deferential and nice to me about it. I appreciate it.
I'm nice to all my guests, and you're welcome back anytime, man. You have a good evening.
Thank you. You too.
All
Yeah,
right.
handsome.
Thank you. Uncommon moderate. Listen, I'm not totally against everything he suggested. I'm just trying to egg you guys along to make you realize, regardless of what side of the issue you're on, you have a right to be on that side of the issue. And as you can see, I'm going to let you speak no matter if I disagree with it or not. But the point I'm trying to make is this is going to be costly, folks. First, we're going to go to the money that's going to be required to keep the teachers trained. I assume if you're going to allow someone to protect your children, you would be responsible for providing them with a firearm. And then, of course, there's liability insurance, which has an infinite range. I mean, if a teacher is pinned down and start firing off shots and hit a couple children, I mean, what is the liability on that? So that's all I'm trying to make. That's the only point I'm trying to make to you folks, is that this is going to cost a fortune. Now, before I go to the next caller, I will just say this. Generally, when it comes to America, we are the beacon of success. Everybody wants to come here. The land of the free, home of the brave, world's biggest superpower, wealthiest country on earth. But this is an area right here, as Cat Williams, the comedian, once said, this shit right here, it's gotta have people looking at America like, what the hell? I mean, you're turning your children's schools into prisons. I mean, you're willing to do all of this stuff to protect the Second Amendment. You got a cop outside, all of the doors are locked, and now the teacher is walking around with a gun on her hip. There's no way I'm gonna ever believe that the rest of the free world is looking at America in regards to this and saying, you know what, I would love for our country to be like America too. Okay, moving back to Shay. Bringing up Shay. At times I enjoy going to some of her lives as well. Good evening, Shay. Have you been noting the program?
Yes, sir. So I wanted to come in. So I was posting a TikTok while I was waiting. So
Okay.
I wanted to come in and talk about it because I was a teacher. So high school history teacher, public school teacher.
Okay.
I don't know if you knew that side of me.
No, I did not. No, I did not.
Yeah. So I taught world history at a public high school in Houston, Texas for 10 years. So,
okay.
So, and I own guns and I shoot, and I'm a good old Texas girl, grew up conservative. So I got a lot of military in my family. And a lot of my side of the family voted for Donald Trump twice. So would
you be okay with teachers carrying firearms in class?
No, I think that's a ridiculous notion.
Why?
Because let me just tell you okay. So I don't think people understand that in public high schools we deal with actual gang members. I don't think people want to discuss. But
I understand. Okay.
I can tell you, in a public high school, we have gang members. I mean, literal gang members. I had the leader of a gang in my class. Nicest guy in the world, by the way. Anyway, but I didn't go home with him, and I didn't live on his turf. So, but in my classroom, he was a pretty nice guy. But in the end of the day, that's just a dumb notion in a public high school. Because there are kids that come from, I had kids that were sleeping in cars. I had kids with mental issues. I had kids with depression. I had gang members. I had all kinds of issues within my classroom. And if you want to think about, first of all, I have guns. So guns should always be locked up. They should never be on your hip, especially if you're in a classroom, right? Can you imagine if I carried it? I mean, it would take a couple of kids to say, hey, she didn't show that video, or she gave us an F on the test. Let's take her over and let's take the gun off of her and shoot her. Like, I'm just saying.
You think that would happen? You think that you think the students would try to disarm a teacher?
No, but not in the first couple of years, but eventually it'll probably lead to the idea.
Wow. So, and obviously once somebody tries to disarm you, you have the right to kill them. So,
well, and you brought up a good point. A lot of these kids were ex students of a school. A lot of these mass shooters at schools. A lot of them are ex students. Yeah, no, teachers get very attached to their students. I mean, there's no way. I mean, that would be really, really hard. But let's be real clear. Let's examine the point. Okay, so I bring my gun and I lock it up in my desk, right? Because it's normally what a teacher would do, correct?
Okay.
Give me a break. And do you want your kids to go to school with teachers carrying guns on their hips? I mean, are we really getting there? How much are we protesting against the idea of kids going through metal detectors at schools?
I think that most of the folks who are in favor of, I would say that most of the folks who are in favor of a teacher carrying a firearm to class is also in favor of them going through a metal detector. And this is why I brought up, we're starting to really turn our schools into compounds, you know, secure compounds.
I mean, is this real? No. Do you really think parents want their kids to go to school environments like that? They don't. Now, are they
No.
scared out of their minds and would feel better if every kid went through a metal detector? Yeah. But do you really want your kids to live like that and go to school like that? Hell no. I mean, that's the thing is like my question to everybody. So my son's schools, so my son goes to Cypher ISD. It's the second largest school district in Houston, Texas, but it's probably the seventh largest in the state of Texas. It is huge. It's got 12 high schools, let alone one school district, right? So it's huge.
Right.
High school averages 3 to 3,500 kids, 3,000 to 3,500 kids. They're large,
Okay.
right? So they're two
Right.
football stadiums alone. They're a mile walking up and down. I mean, they're huge. So if you think about it, so in the last 5-6 years, they have put bulletproof glass all in the front of the buildings. And there is all in the front offices. The whole front of it is bulletproof glass. I made the mistake of telling my son that when I dropped him off to junior high, and he actually mentioned it in the classroom. And the teacher sent him down. The cops came and escorted him and wanted to know why did he know, or why was he asking about bulletproof glass? Well, he had to explain to him that his mother was a teacher in the school district, and I had just informed him of the email that we had gotten. But they were like searching him and wanting to know why he was asking if there was bulletproof glass, right? So this is the shit that my straight A beautiful son goes through. Okay. Then the other thing is to clear plastic backpacks. So he has not carried a real backpack in 5 years. He also has not had a locker in 5 years. So
why not a locker?
Because that's where kids can conceal drugs and guns if they need to. It's a storage locker.
And you're in Texas?
Yes, sir. I'm in Houston, Texas.
You're in the state of Texas.
Yeah.
Okay, I guess the point I'm trying to make, and this is what I've said before, we are, shall not be infringed upon. We are so focused in defending the Second Amendment right that we're willing to sacrifice all the other rights that surround it. And I guess the question I'm saying is, folks say the Second Amendment defends all the other amendments, when in reality it's looking like the Second Amendment puts all the other amendments in jeopardy. You're losing those other amendments, folks. I mean, just simply your freedom to navigate through the country, your freedom to navigate through town, your child's freedom to navigate through school is being hindered in favor of preserving the Second Amendment. I mean, this is pretty clear from all of the things you guys are suggesting.
Absolutely, Tim. You couldn't have said that any better. And the point is you think about it. So you guys are coming at, teachers as being liberal indoctrinators and not teaching CRT, which is not being taught in schools, period. That's just a stupid rhetoric. But at the same time, you think we're literally turning your kid into gay, that we're liberally indoctrinating your child, and now you want to give us a fucking gun?
Yeah. That's a fantastic point that folks think the teachers are liberal, they're woke, they're ruining the kids, but you want to use these same teachers to protect your child with a gun. Yeah, that something right there doesn't add up. I got to move it on, but I'll give you the last word.
Christine, you're in Cy Ranch. My son goes to Cy Ridge. I feel you, sister. They're all bulletproof. They did that. That's like they have like 50 schools. So the amount of money Cy-Fair did for all bulletproof. So our kids are already living in a prison, Tim. Is that okay with all of you parents to have our kids go to school like this so that you can own an AR-15?
Yeah.
You got to ask yourself and research that in your question. Are we really, really making our kids live through this?
Yeah.
I mean,
fair enough. All right, I got to move it on. I appreciate you coming through.
Man. Good to see you.
All right, you have a good one.
Right,
you too.
here.
And I guess that's the question I'm asking. I understand shall not be infringed upon. I don't want anybody messing with my Second Amendment rights. I get that. But this is what you're putting your children through. Now, make no mistake about it. We talk about gun laws in Chicago and liberal cities. But if you look at the gun laws in America, even in liberal cities, they have been getting easier to get a gun over time. Even in Chicago, the laws to obtain a firearm in Chicago have been relaxed over the last 10, 15 years or so. You've had folks literally sue the city of Chicago to have the Supreme Court overturn their gun laws. And folks in these cities are winning. So the point I'm trying to make is that you often hear folks say restrictions on gun laws is not the solution. The solution is more security, more teachers with guns, more guns, guns, guns. The point I'm trying to make is we have never tried the less guns approach. We've always tried the more guns approach. And the more guns approach, we're getting more and more shootings. We have not tried the liberal way to any significance. We've always tried the right wing way. When somebody gets shot, give more guns to good guys. And the end result is more people are getting shot. It's undeniable. All right, let's go to the box. Chaotic God with an inverted pentagram. I love it. Good evening, Chaotic God.
Hey, how's it going? Yeah,
It's going good. And real quick, Jose, on in the comments, you said harder to obtain them. No, it's not. In America, it has gotten increasingly easier, even in liberal cities. It is legally, not illegally, legally. It has gotten increasingly easier to obtain guns, even in liberal cities. Go ahead, Chaotic.
as far as this topic, arming teachers, there's so much more that goes into it. I teach law enforcement tactics. I used to be in the United States Marine Corps. Liability is huge. Aside from liability, you got the fact that, like you're saying, teachers work with these students. The students might come back. They might be put in a situation where they would have to they would possibly have to,
Put
unalive
down.
students. And just being a Marine, just being in the military, there's people that have trained for years. People are trained on all kinds of weapons, and when things hit the fan, even they get troubled, worried. Some people hesitate. Teachers, there's some teachers that are built for it. There's some teachers that will be able to do that, but I would bet 90% of them would not be willing to put themselves on the line or step up in that situation, especially the
Yeah.
ones that have families themselves. They want to
And
go
I
home
and
to
I
their family.
will And I will add on, and I'll let you continue. I'll add on that I go back. I hate to sound sexist or gender biased, but the vast majority of teachers are female. So we are expecting this type of activity, a woman to be willing to put down one of her former students. Remember, that student to her is just going to be a child as well. I mean, when you look at the Ubalde killer, how old was that guy? 18?
Yeah,
You know, to a lot of us, an 18-year-old was just a child. So she has to be willing to put down one of her former students. It's not as easy as just simply carrying a firearm. But go ahead, Chaotic.
the training that's involved. I mean, putting it in a desk or in some sort of locker, that's not feasible. When something happens, you need access to the weapon immediately. And for that to happen, you'd have to train them to use a level 3 holster like police. That means 3 safeties so that somebody can't just take the gun from you. It's just so much training involved, and teachers are unionized. I don't think any teachers union would vote to do this, to want to have to carry this out in the event that something like this does happen.
I
Um,
could see some. I could see some southern states. And by the way, Greg, in the comments, I came from YouTube. For any of you guys who watched all of this on YouTube, I appreciate you coming over here. But I could see some some states down south. I could see some of those teachers' unions being willing to do this.
I think even taking away ARs. I mean, AR is a popular weapon. It's built off an M platform for the military. But even if you took away an AR, in all honesty, the weapon would just change to the next popular weapon of choice. I mean, there's a lot of
Yeah,
weapons that are semi-automatic. Everything
yeah.
an AR can do, a lot of other weapons can do too if you take an AR. I think the only
So,
solution,
so
unfortunately, would be. Go ahead, sir.
in your opinion, what is the solution to at least the mass casualty events? And I'm not just talking about in schools, because keep in mind, folks, no matter what you think should be done about schools, in America, most of the mass shootings are not even in schools. So, chaotic, what do you think should be done if taking away ARs won't work? How are we going to combat this problem?
I think as far as that, you would have to limit magazine size. And that's something that they did in 1994 when Clinton passed the law, the assault weapon ban. It actually worked to an extent, but the only reason why it didn't was because every 30-round magazine was godfathered in. If you already owned one, you got to keep it. So, you took away the assault weapons, but you still kept the 30-round magazines. It just didn't make sense. So you'd have to limit magazines. You'd have to pass stricter laws as far as people being 18 getting access to certain type of weapons and better screening. And for schools, solution for schools would just be to harden schools. I mean, unfortunately, that's the day and age we live in. And to get more personnel, like probably hire more personnel in the police department and just have a separate division where they just deal with schools. Because teachers, army teachers, I don't think that's the way to go. Yeah.
So do we have the finances, the money of it? Keep in mind, a lot of teachers right now that teach in schools, the budget is so low that they actually out of their own pockets are buying pencils and pens and a lot of the supplies. Do we have the money to provide a teacher with a firearm and all of the necessary training and liability insurance on top of just simply paying for the school itself?
You know, if the government really wanted to do that, the same way they sent billions to Ukraine, they could
Let me
spend this
stop. Let me.
children.
I'll let you continue. I promise that. But in regards to you, because I keep hearing Ukraine come up, I just want to tell folks who keep mentioning Ukraine and like yourself, in the 1990s, America under President Clinton told the Ukrainians to get rid of their Soviet era nuclear weapons. And if something happened, we would be there for them. If we hadn't have told them that, if we had minded our own business, this sending money to the Ukraine stuff would not be happening. That is a self-inflicted wound. It's not like we're just throwing away money that we need for something else to the Ukraine. We're giving them money because we made a bullshit promise to them. We did not know how to mind our business, just like we're doing all over the place, telling people who can and cannot have atomic weapons. Here we having a discussion right now on the value of being able to protect yourself with a firearm. Yet we told the Ukrainians to get rid of their atomic weapons and put them in this open position based on our word. So now when they end up being attacked, the first response is we should not send them anything. It's not our problem. Let's just let them fall. We should have minded our own business on that, and they wouldn't be in that problem. They would have had atomic weapons, and Russia would not have messed with them. But let's get back to it, Chaotic. Go ahead on.
Yeah, on that topic, the Russians also told them that they would protect them, but they're the people that initiated the hostilities toward them.
So they never should have got rid of their weapons, in other words. They got
Yeah,
rid of their weapons, and they're dealing with tyranny on a world scale.
yeah, if they did get rid of the weapons like they did, if anything, we should have accepted them into NATO right away. If they're a NATO member, this would have never happened. But that's
Right.
neither here nor there. As far as the schools, like I said, I mean, you're gonna have to just harden the schools. My children went to a private school here, and this school is phenomenal. But it's a private school. It's very well funded, bulletproof doors, glass. Once the kids go into the school, the classrooms are locked from beginning to the end of the day. They don't go outside for bathrooms. The bathrooms are built into the classroom.
Exactly. And that's the next problem I was going to talk about. I mentioned in defense of the Second Amendment, we're losing other rights. You already know what's going to be next. Children are going to lose the right to have recess because it's not safe. I mean, just like we always say, if you ban guns, a criminal will find another way to get a gun, they'll find another way to kill. But for some reason, we think if we arm teachers, the assailants will not find another way. There's recess. You're walking home from school. There are all these other areas to get soft targets. So essentially, what you're going to start having is everybody got to ride the bus home. I don't know. I guess you put bulletproof glass on the bus. There is no recess because a guy could pull up across the street and open up on the park. They're losing all of their other rights in defense of that one amendment. That's what's next is recess.
Yeah. Yeah, unfortunately. I mean, in the times that we live in, it's a difficult problem to tackle. A lot of people just don't want to face the consequences and deal with reality, you know?
Well, the reality is we are putting the Second Amendment above every and all the other freedoms. We're giving the Second Amendment priority over all the other freedoms under the guise that the Second Amendment protects all the other freedoms. But when you look at what's actually happening, it's not protecting those freedoms. It's literally putting them in jeopardy.
Mm. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, so,
And that's it for me, man.
all right. Well, I appreciate you coming by. Once again,
All right.
anytime, you're welcome to come back, man.
Thanks.
And thank you for your service, by the way.
No problem.
All right. Good conversation there with Chaotic. Good one. And folks, when I say this, I'm serious. When you look at what's going on with the internet, even when you look up to and including Donald Trump, he was banned from the internet because folks said he was inciting violence. You're losing your First Amendment rights because people think that you're saying stuff that's going to result in somebody getting shot. You're losing your Fourth Amendment rights, which protects you against unwarranted searches and seizures, because people are patting you down, such as stop and frisk, because they think you have a gun on you. And right now, we currently have, if you see something, say something. How long is it going to be before they start going after people who saw something and did not say something? You're losing other amendments in defense of the Second Amendment. All of these other rights that they're taking away from you are based on the notion that you may have a gun on you. Even when you get pulled over by the police, you're expected to maintain 10 and 2, don't make any sudden movements, don't do anything until the cop tells you, all because he thinks you may have a gun on you. You're losing all of your normal rights in the country as a citizen to navigate your way through this country because everybody thinks you might have a gun. All right, going to the box. Libertas. Okay, let me bring you on here. I'm just simply saying, I understand you want Second Amendment rights, but realize you are losing other rights in regards to that. Okay, Memento, good evening.
Good evening, sir. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. Have you been listening to the program?
Yes, sir. For at least before the last two, I think I caught. I know
So
I
what
caught
do
the
you
last.
think? Fair enough. So what is your take on arming teachers, arming educators?
Well, I like to look at people as individuals. No, not all teachers. For instance, listening to you for the last half hour or so, not all teachers are female, and not all teachers are.
What percentage of teachers you believe are female?
A very high percentage, definitely.
Okay.
Do you know the percentage? Is it like
No,
80%?
my answer would be the same as yours. I don't know, but I
Okay.
think back to when I went to school. My sixth grade teacher was male, and I think I had a social studies teacher and maybe I had about 3 or 4 male teachers out of about 20.
Yes,
So
sir.
I mean,
I
I mean, not many.
had maybe something like similar. I
Yeah.
guess I had
So
history.
that's a very low percentage.
It was less than half for me, but I also had shop and I had agriculture class.
Okay. All right. Fair enough.
I always had some male teachers. I wasn't in one classroom in high school. I moved around like you would to go to different courses, but and it's kind of funny because I was going to say that you actually kind of remind me of a teacher, like the teacher coach type personality,
Okay.
the way
Oh,
you are. That's
I'll
why
take
that's
that as
one
a
thing.
compliment. I'll take that
Yeah,
as a
yeah,
compliment. Thank you.
that is meant as a compliment. And
Thank you. I appreciate that.
yeah, you remind me as either a teacher or a coach, and kind of remind me of some of the teachers that I had. So
Okay. I've heard
if
that from my daughter, so hey, I appreciate that.
oh,
I have no problem with that at
all
all.
right.
We teachers are the foundation of this country. We need them. I don't know if we need them to be armed, but we certainly need them there.
Well, it's again going back to looking at people as individuals and not saying teachers and always thinking of the one really soft-spoken female teacher who might have taught. I know I had a math teacher. She was really quiet. She was smart. She taught math fine. She taught me algebra, I think. But
Okay, real
I
quick, I'm gonna let you continue, but I see unapologetic black men said I've had more male professors, but K through 12 more women, and that's the same for me. I have a technology degree and a couple degrees in business, and I will say at the collegiate level, you're right, but like he suggested, K through 12, kindergarten through senior year in high school, you had more women, and that's where all of the shootings are taking place. There's only been I believe Virginia Tech, there has not been a lot of these events at the collegiate level. They're mostly K through 12. And it looks like Queen Lady said Google is suggesting that 74% of teachers are female. So that is a high number. But go ahead,
yeah,
Memento.
Yes. Anyways, yeah, the individual. If it was an individual like you, I know at one time you said you carried, and you're not a pushover, and you seem to be very level-headed and very assertive. You've got all the qualities of, like I said, the male teachers that I had. I don't think anybody would have a problem with you carrying, especially carrying concealed. You know,
Right.
the kids
But at
wouldn't
the
have to
same
know about
time,
that.
but at the same time, I could not imagine having to take the life of a former student. That would be a
And
bit difficult to do.
that definitely would be. Now,
Yeah.
I believe it goes to the individual, though. That's really the only way I can answer that. If it's somebody that, a teacher that was prior military or prior law enforcement and then went to teach, and they're just like, hey, I just happen to have this skill set, and I'm going to continue to use it because I'm competent at it, whether that be a male or female teacher, then it goes back to that individual, and they should be allowed to do it if it's on them and the school agrees to it. Now,
Yeah.
I wouldn't want the schools to become the prisons and be locked down like we're talking about, but I still think, we do need layers of prevention and protection. Especially prevention, anything we can do to stop this. And the only thing I can see that I think I've said this to you before, the only thing I can see that's in 100% of these cases is a psycho. It's psychosis. Something's happening
Yeah.
to these individuals that cause them to do this, and then they go after a soft target, and the soft target is always either the school or a shopping mall or a movie theater, and a lot of times it includes their family first. They'll murder their parents or something like
Yeah.
that, and then they go out and do that thing. And it's, how do we detect that? How do we prevent that? Those are the people that, we take away the Second Amendment, we take away
What
the
about
AR-15.
Okay,
The,
and that's what I was about to ask you because chaotic, the previous caller, chaotic, good one. What about the notion of raising the age of maturity from 18 to 21 for a citizen to purchase a firearm?
it should be considered, because I believe the last time I talked to you, which was maybe 3 days ago, I told you,
Uh-huh.
I believe I told you that I think a juvenile offender that's got a history of violence could have their record sealed. And then we talked
Yeah.
about not wanting to expose them or anything. It's sealed for a reason, to protect them because they're juvenile. But um, if it's a really bad crime and then they turn 18 and they pass that background check and all the records are sealed, that could be the case that actually happened in these last couple of shooters. We don't know because it's sealed. I'm I'm not saying that. I'm not even saying that's a theory. I'm saying that's a possibility, I guess.
Yeah.
So it should be considered to raise the age from 18 to 21. And no matter, and I'm definitely pro 2A, but that should be considered.
I'm often amazed at how many folks in my audience disagree with that. Like, for instance, right now, for those who are watching this, how many of you agree or disagree? How many of you would support raising the age of maturity for I guess I'd say a child to purchase a firearm from 18 to 21? How many of you would support that versus those who disagree? I just want to see in the comments real quick.
Okay.
I
Okay.
see, looks like, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I'm not entirely sure that I support that idea, but I do want to make it clear. I think it should be considered. What I really want, what I really truly believe is we've got to figure out how to identify the psychosis in people, because that's not a mental health problem like PTSD or anxiety. Psychosis is something completely different. All of the military people that I've served with and stuff, we've all actually, as a matter of fact, all people have mental health. We just have kind of different states of mental health. But psychosis is something completely different, and
Fair enough.
and
Well,
how do we identify?
the problem is while we're trying to figure out what the solution is, we're still throwing guns out into the mix. So we're even though we don't know what the solution to the problem is, We know the problem exists, and we're still making it very easy for that problem to get firearms. So I can't. There's no way to even dream of this not happening based on the current formula that's in play. I gotta move it on, though, man. I'll let you wrap it up.
Well, I definitely agree with you. I just, even if we fortify schools and stuff like that, though, too, there's always going to be some sort of soft target. But if the soft target is going to be like their parents and then the school that they went to, that's linking it to something. That's an important thing to think about. I wanted to point that out. Obviously, I believe we need layers of the prevention and protection. You got to be proactive instead of reactive. Reactive is too late.
Fair enough. And maybe if we raise the age of maturity from 18 to 21, their high school would be further out of their mind because they would have been out of high school for several additional years. Okay, well, I appreciate you coming through, man.
Yes, sir. Have a good night. Thank you.
You too. Jason in the comments, you asked Don, do you know of any liberal Trump supporters? Liberals, this is not on the same, this is obviously off topic a little bit, but there are plenty of liberals that look at Trump as a better choice, minus the tweets, minus the insults, and minus January 6th. There are plenty of liberals. I mean, there are Bernie Sanders supporters that voted for Trump. So the notion that there are no liberal Trump supporters, keep in mind, Trump was able to acquire more black votes than any other president on the Republican side in recent history. So there are some liberals that may see Trump as a better option, minus the tweets, minus the insults, and minus January 6th. But I understand most of my folks out there, my MAGA folks, you love the tweets, you love the insults, and a lot of you support January 6th. So under that situation, I don't know what to say about that. But there's a lot of folks who care about the economy that are pro-military, pro-police, pro-Christianity, pro-life, that also happen to be normally leaning left. Now, we're not talking AOC, Maxine Waters, or the squad, but moderates. There's some moderates that can see the difference, just like there are some moderates on the right that may be willing to vote for Biden before he became the current Biden we have. Okay, let me go on back. No, that is wrong of you to say, says Shireen Montez. Listen, the mindset of every 330 million people in this country. How many folks vote? 74 million, I think Trump got, or whatever Biden. You're talking about 140 million people or so voted in the last election. You don't know what's on the mindset of each individual voter. You could be a liberal with a hell of a lot of your retirement tied up in big oil. If you care about your retirement that's tied up in big oil as a liberal, why the hell would you vote for Biden? There are lots of legitimate reasons why a liberal might support Trump and vice versa. But I appreciate the comment. Okay, going on to Joey Boy, 19.
Hello.
You can go across party line. Joey Boy, good evening.
Hey, good to see you again, my man. How you been?
Welcome back. Good to have you on.
Yeah, how you been? How you hanging in there?
Oh man, this whole situation, as you can see on the monitor behind me, the notion of teachers carrying firearms around elementary school age children, to me, it's a reason for concern. But what is your take on it?
Well, you know I'm a teacher, right? I teach at a public school.
Oh, I did not know that.
Yes.
Elementary or high school? Collegiate level.
I've taught all ages, but primarily high school, secondary school. Yeah.
So what do you think about arming your coworkers?
I think there'd be more problems than what it would solve, honestly.
Elaborate.
Okay, three issues. One, how are they going to pay for it? It'd be outrageously expensive to train everybody and give everyone hardware. It would take a long time to do, and a lot of people would probably refuse to do it anyway because they just like myself. I don't know how I'd feel walking into my classroom with a gun on my sidearm. You know, like that would be kind of weird.
Are you a two-way supporter?
Yeah.
Okay, because Chaotic in the comments do you think the teachers union? Do you think your teachers union would support something like that? No.
They just came out and said you're not even allowed to have conceal and carry on school property. So that
What
was
state are
a
you in?
directive that came
What
down.
state are you in?
I'm in Oregon. I'm in Portland Public Schools
Okay,
in
all
Portland,
right.
Oregon. Yeah, and they did.
Okay.
I just
That
heard
may have
today on
something
the.
to do with it.
Well, yeah, but half of Oregon's very red too. It's like Pennsylvania.
Yeah,
All right, it's
that's
like the
true.
valley. The valley's blue. The cities are blue. Very liberal, very progressive. But anywhere rural is going to be quite red. You know. So it's like a lot of places in the
Yeah.
United States. Now, here's the thing. I'm all for having a certified, vetted policeman in or near campus in case there was an emergency. We used to have one that would come in 3 days a week, and I used to have the guy actually come talk to my classes. I wanted the kids to meet the cops and get to know them and hear what they had to say about, like compliance and like what to do, what not to do, what are your rights, that kind of stuff. And that was good. That was a good relationship. But then when the whole riots started happening here in Portland, and the whole like every cop's a bad cop thing, right? Which is, I think, is
Yeah.
ridiculous. When that all
Yeah.
happened, they kind of like pulled them back. The bureau pulled them back, and I know people down at the bureau. And they were just like, yeah, it's too much of a hot issue right now. We just don't feel like having armed policemen in schools is a good idea right now. And then now, of course, we're talking about bringing them back. So I think that would be a good solution. I think to have an armed policeman near or on campus somewhere who's a trained professional, who's been vetted, someone who, isn't like, like say a reject from Texas cop, who's got a bad record, kind of a thing, right?
Right.
That to me, I think is a better solution than spending billions and billions of dollars arming and training all the teachers. Plus, some of these teachers, you really don't want them to have firearms. Man, they can barely see straight. They're like 75 years old. Like
It's
you don't
interesting.
want
Yeah,
them.
it's interesting you say that because somebody else said that I think they're a special needs teacher in the comments here, and they're
Yeah,
like, I can't be around special needs kids with guns. I mean,
yeah,
think about it. You're bending over with a kid in a wheelchair or something
yeah,
like that, or helping them, and they're reaching for your firearm.
yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
it could be a mess.
Or all of the, like you set your gun down on your desk and you look up and it's gone, right? Because kids steal stuff, right?
God.
Then what do you do?
Yeah.
Then what do you
Wow.
do? Or you drop your firearm while you're hanging a globe from the ceiling, and your firearm comes out and goes off because it hits the ground, and you put a bullet through someone's head by accident. There's
Well,
so many more
that
accidents and
shouldn't happen.
problems.
Your firearm should not discharge because it hit the ground. I've dropped
Yeah,
mine by mistake several times.
yeah.
If you got a good firearm, it should not go off from a strike on the ground.
All I'm saying is weird stuff happens sometimes.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying.
Okay.
Okay, things
All
you
right,
can't
man.
predict. So I think a good compromise would have an armed policeman on campus, and maybe even more monitor, maybe more cameras on doors. Because kids, here's the thing about the whole door issue. It's so funny when people are like, oh, just have one door. Well, see, the thing is, kids let other kids in other doors. Like, if a kid walks up to the back door and he knocks on it, some kids may walk in by, they're going to let him in because they want to be polite. And so the whole door thing is ridiculous. Like,
Yeah.
we already have locked doors. We already have, like measures. We go through training for lockdown and lock in and earthquakes and fires. We do trainings every month. We do trainings, so it's like, the thing is, we're prepared, but it would be nice to have someone near the campus that was a trained professional, just in case
Yeah.
it did go down, right? And we have someone immediately there who can help the situation, right? And that's
Right.
my take on it.
Okay, fair enough. I don't think I disagree with much of what you said. I mean, like I said, if you got a decent firearm, you should dropping it should not make a discharge. But you're right, other things can happen. Because I know myself when I've been over, sometimes my pants, my shirt come up, you can see my ass, you can see I'm carrying a firearm. Like some folks in the audience
Yeah.
mentioned, students fighting with teachers and things like that.
Yeah,
Yeah, and
that
it
does happen.
happens. All of this, and in fact, it is far more common for a teacher to get in a fight with a student than a mass casualty event. So
Right.
this could go, yeah, it could go sideways from a number of levels. But I appreciate you coming back through again, man.
No, I appreciate you letting me say my
All right.
piece, because as a teacher, we do worry about these things, and we discuss them. We have quite a few debates about them at staff meetings. The intelligence is in the room, as it were. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We're very concerned. Most of our kids, the good news is, most of the kids that I've taught over the last 24 years, fine people, excellent people, good citizens. You know, they're going to be fine. They're the future. They're doing great. They're learning stuff. They're kind. They're polite. They're good people. It's just like any population. There's going to be that little percentage on the side there that's
Yeah.
a little unstable for whatever reason, right? And that's
Yeah.
something we need to. I think addressing universal health care over several generations would actually be a better solution, because it would pull it up by the root. It would
Yeah.
help the systemic problems that exist, because you got a kid that's that unstable. That kid's probably unstable because of family situations or home life, right? Or something.
Yeah.
Like you follow that kid home, you're going to see it's dysfunctional family 9 times out of 10. Not always,
Wow.
but usually it's something going on at home that's causing all that anger. You know what I mean?
I agree with that, but at the same time, too, it could also be the child being bullied at school and wanting to come in and show them what happened. You know, it could
You
be
know,
a
we
case of that too.
yeah, that's Columbine was all about that. Columbine was that's two kids that were kind of nerdy D&D kind of kids, you know, like kind of kids you see on
Yeah.
Stranger Things,
It
you
it
know,
it
like they
is
got bullied
never the it
constantly.
is never yeah, it's never the captain of the football team or the basketball captain. It's always those who are shy, introverts. They don't have a lot of friends. It's always those type. It's not the cool dude that come back and do this.
Right. Right, not the confident
Yeah.
kids. It's the kids that are scared.
Yeah.
And you know,
Yeah.
the other thing is that we have addressed a lot of bullying in the schools over the last 10 years. In fact, I have rarely in the last 10 years, I've only seen a couple situations in the hallway where a kid was being bullied and we nipped it right in the butt, like right away. Like it's taken care of right away, because we take that very seriously. Now, when I was a kid, that was kind of like a rite of passage. You know, you got
Well,
bullied
let
when
me
you're a
say this
freshman,
though.
but
Let me say, and
yeah.
I do got to move it on, but I will
Okay.
tell you this, and I'll tell my audience this as well. As my signs say behind me, we are in a no snowflake zone. And keep in mind what being a snowflake is somebody who cannot take insults, tweets, and all of that. What is bullying? What is bullying? You're actually
Okay.
turning that child into a snowflake. I mean, in my audience, my MAGA audience, we tend to be in favor of letting folks say it, speak their mind. If you want to insult somebody, you should be allowed to do that. But keep in mind, a lot of that is what can turn people into this stuff. I'll give you the last word, Joey. I got to move it on.
Okay. Yeah, I just want to say thank you again, man. I love your site here, and I love the different varying comments and opinions. Thank you so much.
Anytime. Appreciate it. Much love.
All right.
All right. Back.
By the way, folks, if you will, get your boy up to 10,000 likes. We're pretty damn close. Tap the screen. Appreciate it every time you guys make it happen. Nothing like this audience. I love all you guys for that. But yeah, like I said behind me, we talk about being in no snowflake zone. I know my MAGA audience. I know my Trump supporters. That is one of the primary tenets of being MAGA, is that you feel you should be able to call a spade a spade. You love Pocahontas. You love Sleepy Joe. You like being able to toss insults around. This is the stuff that they do at school that turn children into introverts, psychotics, and mass casualty implementers. This is the stuff that can do that. I'm just simply suggesting it. So if your child comes home crying from being bullied, well, quit being a snowflake, little Timmy. Go back to school and take it like a man. Well, he might take your gun and go back to school and treat them like men. I'm just simply saying this is what we promote when we start talking about. We love hearing stuff like the tweets and the insults and how we miss that. What do we say? I can go for some mean tweets and some cheap gas. Well, this is what can come from that. Going back to the oh shit, I just sent an invite that I did not mean to do. Okay, cliches in different groups can be a problem too. That is true. Who is Sleeping Joe? I'm not even going to go to that. Looking at the comments here. But you guys get what I'm saying. You understand what I'm saying. When we talk about snowflakes, we talk about people who are sensitive to insults, sensitive to being bullied. We call those folks snowflakes, which essentially is bullying them all over again. You came home crying because they said insults about you, and now I'm going to call you a snowflake because you wasn't man enough to handle those insults. So essentially, you're kind of victimizing that person again. A lot of us, like yours truly, your humble correspondent, I always say my skin is thicker than an alligator covered in cement. But that doesn't apply to everybody. Everybody can't take this stuff. And some of them turn into monsters based on that. It's okay to like Trump. It's absolutely okay to like Trump. But do we need the tweets? Do we need the insults? Do we care about those who are being insulted? That's all I'm asking. How do you like the oil CEOs telling Joe to drill in the U.S.? You left are a laughing joke. Okay, all right, that's fair enough. Listen, I'm not happy about what's going on at the pump no more than anybody else. And if you want to talk about the failures of the Biden administration, I'm not here to defend President Biden, but I'm just simply going to suggest to you that if Trump was not tweeting and insulting people, you'd be dealing with another 4 years of Trump instead of on here complaining about President Biden. Opioids killing more kids by far. Ask President Putin to lower gas prices and food prices. Okay, all right, I get where you guys are coming from, and I'm not necessarily disagreeing with you. I do not like President Biden's economy. But I'm telling you, if you were not so enamored, in love with the tweets and the insults, you wouldn't have President Biden. Nobody hates cheap gas in a good economy, which is what we were getting from Trump. You ask folks why they voted for Trump, and it's overwhelmingly the stuff I'm talking about, the tweets and the insults, the stuff my MAGA folks love. So what you love is the stuff that a lot of voters find to be the worst quality in him. Why not hope that he comes back without that, and maybe you'll get your cheap gas and get your economy you had back without hurting and injuring people. You talk about compromise, this is the time to do that. Looking in the comments real quick, if the mainstream media wasn't a Goebbels-like outlet, Trump would have one. I don't get that one. If the mainstream media wasn't a Goebbels-like outlet, Trump would have one. I don't get that comment. Trump, Little Marco, Weak Jeb, Crazy Ted, Pocahontas, Mia Love. There's so many insults that come from Trump. I don't even know where to go with it. I just did a video the other day where he told a woman, "You guys never think," and my comments were filled with people who were supportive of how he treated that female reporter. At the end of the day, I know my MAGA folks, if there's one thing they love, it's watching Trump belittle and insult people. They absolutely eat that shit up like it's lobster. So I don't know where else to go with that. They became addicted to being bullied, says Willow. Dixie calling the situation going to come up again. Dixie calling the situation, I don't get that one. Trump just got things done. Yeah, Carmen, Duncan. In regards to Trump getting things done, he could have successfully got everything about Trump in terms of the economy, in terms of our projection of strength on the world stage, all of that stuff could have been done without the tweets and the insults. Pocahontas did not help his administration one bit. It did not help pass any legislation. It did not help any of that. That's all I'm saying is that everything that you like about Trump in terms of him helping your bottom line and making your country better could have been done without the insults. Biden is a problem of the universe. Now, that is a hell of a statement. Damn, you just escalated him to a universal level. All right, if it wasn't Trump, it's the Trump worshipers. Well, Trump is on stage saying this stuff. You lifed a hard time. I don't get that. Out of curiosity, how is Trump going to lower the gas prices? D1234. This is speculation, and this is coming from a liberal. You guys can tell me where I'm wrong. Tell me the F off. I invite any discourse. If you want to insult, fair. But at the end of the day, I do believe that Trump would have called OPEC, for instance, where Biden is kind of speaking kindly of the Saudi Arabians to get them to pump more oil, Trump would have threatened them. Either you quit playing games with the production of oil, because that's what OPEC is doing right now. Either you quit playing games, or we're going to start taking things away that you've gotten accustomed to, such as military protection. This is what Trump would have done. He would have been a hardliner on them. Now, you can tell me I'm wrong. I'm fine with that. You can blame Putin if that's what you want to do. But I do believe, even as a liberal, this problem in regards to fuel in this country would not be as bad as it is under Biden. I just believe that. You can tell me I'm wrong. I believe that Trump would have drilled everywhere in the United States that it was capable of being drilled. I don't care if your home was on top of an oil well and he decided to tear down your home. I think that he would have drilled everywhere he could, because Trump, in my opinion, your humble correspondent, he operates in winning battles, not wars. If I got to ruin relationships, ruin alliances and everything to win this current battle, I'm going to do that. How it affects us long term, I won't be around. I'm not concerned with that. I'm going to win this battle right now. And I believe that Trump would have done everything he could to get oil prices down in this country. Period. It might have affected our relationships with a lot of countries. It may have affected our relationships, such as the pipeline with the Native Americans. I'm going to get oil down. I'm going to get the price of fuel down in this country, no matter what. And I think he would have succeeded at that. That's my take, though. I could be wrong. I'm fine with you suggesting that, but that is my opinion on that. This is how you lose allies. Blue Don, I agree with that as well. But like I just said, his focus would be on winning the battle. How can I get fuel prices down right now for my current administration? If they go up in regards to other administrations in the future, that's not my concern. They'll deal with that. I'm trying to bring them down for my administration. And I think that that's the way he would have viewed it. Would it have ruined alliances? Yeah, that's a very stark possibility, but I don't think he would have been focused on that. You realize Joey wants to eliminate fossil fuels, right? Come on, man. And that's true, too. That is true, too, that Biden immediately started taking a path that let the big oil companies know he's trying to get rid of you guys, which made them decide, well, let's make as much money off of this shit as possible. Is that he's making it clear he's trying to, to divert all of our fuel uses away from big oil. So they're going to do whatever they can to maximize profits, which is on our backs. That's another thing that I would suggest that Trump would not have done, because Trump was favoring big oil, not alternative energies. What was he saying? Windmills give you cancer and all of this crazy stuff. Biden is going in that direction. I really do not believe that the fuel prices we're paying now, even though it's global, and I get that, I do believe there would be somewhat of relief. I don't know if it'll be $1.50 gas, but I do believe the relief would have been a little bit more under a President Trump term than President Biden. But on the long term, I talked about battles versus wars. On the long term, we're going to alternative energy, whether you like it or not. That is the future. And on the long term, in terms of winning a war, we're going to be ahead in regards to alternative energies, because we switched over. It's just we're paying the price for making that move right now. That's just my take on it. Looking at the comments. If I was an oil company, I'd make as much money as I could, hurt Biden, give the Republicans a leg up. West Virginia Patriot, and your West Virginia says it all, because you're probably in favor of coal as well. But I would agree with your statement up to a point. If I was an oil company, I'd make as much money as I could. I agree with that. Hurt Biden, maybe. At the end of the day, they see green. They don't give a shit about politics. Whoever puts money in my pocket, I'm going for that. If Biden is trying to play games with their business and they want to hurt them, maybe. But I don't think they're interested in giving the Republicans a leg up. They're trying to make money. That's all they care about. Trump is direct and stubborn. Any complex scenarios like COVID would trip him. That's how he lost. I believe there's some validity to that, but certainly his mouth and his stubbornness, being refusing to listen to the scientists and criticizing them to some degree. For instance, why would you stand there and let your audience yell, "Fire Dr. Fauci," and then appear on television with Dr. Fauci the next day? That makes absolutely no sense at all. Either the guy does not know what the hell he's talking about, or he does. To let your audience sit there and yell fire this dude, and then you go on television with the guy while he gives instructions, and you're standing right next to him. I don't understand it. Electric vehicles have their place, but they're not a cure-all by far. Right now, that is true, but they are the future. Electric vehicles, make no mistake about it, are the future. Jed was shooting at food and struck oil. Okay. All right, folks. Mining for batteries is destroying the land. Tommy tried. I can't speak on that because a lot of the things we talk about, whether it's solar panels destroying the land after it's time to dispose of them or not, Trump talking about windmills causing cancer and killing off eagles and birds, a lot of that stuff is coming from big oil. Big oil knows that their time is coming to an end. And a lot of those falsehoods, whether they're true or not, some of them are falsehoods, some of them may be true or not, but that stuff is coming from big oil. It's because they're trying to drag out their time by telling you the worst things they can about alternative energies. Take one more. This is Free for All, 1982.
Was that Tom Petty? Okay, Free for All. Good evening.
Hey, what's up, man?
Nothing at all. What's on your mind?
Well, I heard what you were talking about as far as alternative energies and kind of where we're going with, electric vehicles and all that.
Uh-huh.
So, I mean, okay. So before,
Do you believe alternative, for instance, electric vehicles in terms of electric cars? Do you
yeah,
believe that is the future?
I believe it can be.
But you don't know for sure.
Well, and let's go ahead and preface this. I'm more of a conservative. You know me. I've been on your lives before, but I'm more of a conservative voter. I love your lives. I think you're very. I think you're extremely educated, and I love the way you debate with people, and
I
I
love
love
it.
the way
Appreciate it. I'm not going to interrupt you.
yeah, no, I like the way you do things, man.
Thank
And
you. Thank you.
yeah, and for all those out there that may be just listening for the first time, the the handsome liberal, he's a good guy. I always enjoy getting in on his lives.
I
So
appreciate that
here's
very much.
oh yeah, absolutely. Um, my thing is, one I think the current administration went they went they went headstrong into the Green New Deal
To a
type of
fault. To a
right.
fault, they went very strong. Yeah, I agree
They
with
went
that.
headstrong. Okay.
Yeah, I agree.
Now, if you're looking at the current electric grid in this country, we're looking at blackouts. We're already experiencing them in the Midwest right now. We're looking at blackouts in Texas. We're looking at blackouts in California. We're looking at blackouts probably countrywide. And Tesla has been selling a shitload of used cars. All right. So we can't even handle the current electricity volume that we have in this country. Why are we canceling fossil fuels at such a dramatic rate? I'm not saying that we don't need to move towards more greener, more earth friendly energy possibilities, but we are not there. So
Let me
why
give
are
you.
we doing this? We do not
Okay,
have the infrastructure to do this. That's my problem.
and that's a fair point. Let me just say this. I've used solar panels for several years now, and I will say this, that they don't put a hell of a lot of power per square, but if you put solar panels on every roof in America, I believe you would put enough power back in the grid that you could charge a hell of a lot of EV vehicles at home. The problem is we got a lot of wasted energy coming in the form of the sun that we just simply let hit the ground and dissipate as heat. Just think about how many American roofs does not have solar panels on them, but receive a ton of sunlight every day. If we just simply put solar panels on roofs, we would be all because all of that energy goes back to the grid. All of the
Well,
energy you don't use while you're at work, all of that goes back to the grid.
all
So
right.
it's
Well,
there.
here's my question.
Go
Here's
ahead.
my question. How do you dispose of those solar panels? And I think my further question is when you mine lithium, you you literally strip that land, whatever land that you've mined for lithium, you've essentially stripped that land of being able to do anything for 200 to 300 years.
Okay, I can
So
let me respond.
and then with the battery disposal, we haven't figured that out yet. So how do
Okay.
we dispose of these batteries? And right now, we're talking, when we're talking a Tesla battery replacement, we're talking, yeah, I would say at least $8,000 to $10,000. So
Okay, let
we
me
do not have the infrastructure in place to do this yet. So we need to be phasing these things. If we're going to phase out fossil fuels, I'm all about it. But we also have
okay,
these
let me say a few things. Okay,
all right,
let me
yeah,
get
go
in there.
ahead.
Okay.
Absolutely.
First thing I will say in regards to solar panels, they have a lifespan of 25 years. So when it comes to
Okay.
how are you going to dispose of them, you got 25 years to figure out a solution. Solar panels
Well,
don't go
but
ahead.
are we but the thing is why would we mass produce something that we haven't figured out yet, and then all of a sudden in 25 years we're just going to expect to have it figured out, and then when we don't, well, what are we going to do with it? We have already shown that we are not very proactive in being able to figure out how to dispose of things.
Well,
That's ultimately why we're
to me,
destroying this world.
yeah, to me, what you're suggesting is almost very similar to the gun debate, whereas what you're suggesting won't work. So let's keep doing what we're doing right now, which nobody is necessarily
No,
happy with. I
no,
mean,
I'm not saying that. Let's keep studying what we want to happen, but we can't go balls deep on just destroying fossil fuels right now because our country doesn't have the infrastructure to
well,
support
what
such an ideal.
you're pointing to all of the damages of mining lithium, solar panels, and all of that, without acknowledging that mining oil and coal is also destroying the planet. I mean,
It's probably
you're
it's
getting harm
probably
either
the
way.
least. It's
Huh?
probably the least of if you're talking about CO2 emissions. CO2 emissions have happened since the beginning of this world. They've happened with volcanic eruptions. They've happened with asteroid collisions. They've happened with places like Yellowstone. This Earth and this Earth's atmosphere can handle CO2. For anyone, for any human to think that we have been also powerful to create an ice age or to create a global warming period. Has this Earth gone through that before? Yes, sir, it has. And it's
Well,
gone through that all
I'm
without
not
human
a
beings.
yeah,
All
yeah, I'm not
without
a
human
scientist.
beings.
Yeah, you're okay. I will admit you're going. I will admit ignorance on this. You're above my. I'm not a scientist about what happened to the Earth in the past and all of that. I'm just going to simply say, if it was up to me, I would promote solar panels. I get what you're saying. In 25 years,
Solar
they may not
panels
have
are.
a solution.
I'm not against that. I'm not against that at
Okay.
all. I again, I'm not against trying to find greener energy or trying to
Well,
find energies that are more sustainable for the population. What I am saying is we haven't found
I
that
think the
yet.
solution. I think there's a value in a solution. I think solar panels on every American roof would put out a ton of energy, but the big oil companies, just like what you were suggesting, most of the points you're giving, that stuff comes directly from big oil because they don't want to let go of the power. So any kind of alternative energy you come up with, even windmills, well, there's something negative about it. But at the end of the
Well,
day, I do
do
believe solar panels by far would put enough power back in the grid that we could do a lot of the things that are on the left want to do, as opposed to lithium mining, which I do believe is dangerous. But go ahead.
yeah. I agree with you. If we could figure out a way to produce solar panels that the materials within the solar panels could be, somehow recycled, awesome. But we've got all these wind farms throughout the country, and these turbines and these wings on these wind turbines, that they're just sitting in yards because we have no way to get rid of them. And that's going to be the same thing with these lithium
Well,
batteries.
see, that's where I have a problem with, is that a lot of this stuff is getting shot down before it starts. Just like I said with the gun debate. Well, we can't do that because you got to try this stuff to some degree before we just assume, well, if you
But we
do that,
have
that's not
tried
going to work.
wind turbines. Wind
Okay.
turbines are all across this country. They are all
Well,
across this country. And then when these
you have
wind turbines
already,
go down,
yeah, but
they're now just sitting there. We have no way to dispose of them. The wind turbines have been tried, sir.
well, but you do realize that there are a lot of scientists that believe that fracking for oil is causing earthquakes in places they never had earthquakes, right?
Yeah, no, I don't think that fracking is a perfect science. No. And
Okay.
here's the thing. I also don't believe that drilling within the earth is going to be the smartest way to produce energy from the earth. The thing is, I somewhat agree with you, sir. Like, I really do. What I'm saying is, we are not at the place where our government should be canceling fossil fuels to the point, and I don't care what you say. I'm not saying Biden himself has made gas prices $8 or $7 or whatever. I'm not saying that. But
I
I do think we have to come to an agreement that the policies that have been put in place, no, the pipeline was not developed to make US gas prices lower. The pipeline was developed to bring Canadian oil to market down in Houston and refine it. That's what the XL pipeline was developed for. I know that, and every other intelligent Republican should as well. What I'm
let me
saying
ask you
is,
this question. Let me ask you this
yeah,
question.
yeah,
Would you entertain the possibility that, and this may sound conspiratorial, certainly if folks in my audience support big oil, but I'm gonna
sure,
give it to you from a liberal side of the aisle. I
yeah.
personally believe that our dependence on alternative fuels has not progressed as far as it should be, primarily because big oil is behind the works, gumming up the wax, telling folks some of the stuff what you're talking about, maybe
Mm-hmm.
buying patents and preventing stuff from actually coming to fruition. But I believe big oil is probably one of the biggest reasons why we're still dependent on big oil.
Um, I would probably agree with that, only
Okay.
because and the main reason I agree with that is because I also agree that um, most of Washington and most of our elected officials are controlled by lobbyism. So
Yeah.
yeah, I would probably agree with that.
Right. Okay. All right.
Absolutely.
Fair enough. Fair enough. All right, man. I got to move it on. We don't went into alternative energy, but
All right. Hey, yes, sir.
you're
Hey,
always
handsome liberal. I'm going to go ahead and tell your crowd or anybody who's in here that doesn't follow you, follow the handsome liberal. I definitely enjoy listening to him. I'm a conservative, but I love you, brother.
all right. Always good to have you, man. Such a pleasure.
Yes, sir. Thanks, man.
All right. Good evening. Okay.
Man, I was about to wrap this up, but I gotta let's see what Sam Roth. I'll take a couple more callers before I wrap it up. You guys are always good conversationists. I always enjoy talking to you folks. Sam Roth, good evening.
Good evening. What's going on, handsome liberal?
None at all. We're talking about arm. Okay, me and we just got into a spiel about alternative energy, but in reality, we're talking about the state of Ohio just recently passed a law allowing teachers to carry firearms in class. Do you agree with that?
Teachers, you said?
Yeah, allowing teachers to be armed in schools.
I would only agree with it if the teachers had gone through extensive training and background checks. The
Well,
problem.
you got to go through background checks to become a teacher anyway. You don't want psychos around the kids, so they already go through background checks for as far as the psychotic part. But as far as proficiency with a weapon, that's a whole different story.
Yeah, I mean that's the problem, isn't it? Like it's one thing to go through a firearms class, but for somebody to be proficient in a firearm is something completely different. Um, I was a Navy police officer, so I'm very well aware of the training required to get proficient in a firearm. And I can tell you from experience, having worked as a range safety officer, there's just some people that shouldn't have a weapon. Some people that just don't know how to handle it. Some people that freak out when they handle it. I would say it would I wouldn't say you wouldn't want to arm every single teacher in a school. And for that reason, I say you'd only want to pick out the teachers that, one, are willing to go through the type of firearms training required to get proficient in a firearm enough
Mhm.
to where you could trust that person with the firearm. They know all the firearm safety rules. They're very aware of their surroundings. They'll be able to think in a situation in something like an active shooter. The other problem is there needs to be a lot more active shooter training done in the schools for the students in general that I think is not happening. And I
Won't
think
this
a lot of it is
possibly
I think a lot of it
won't
is
having
really a joke when it comes to the type
okay
of training that they are the drills that they do. To
okay
simply have kids go run underneath and hide under a table or go hide in a room and close the door, that's not really that's not from a police officer who's done countless thousands and thousands of hours of active shooter training. That's not really what you want people
okay.
to do in that type of
Let me
situation. Go ahead.
let me
Sorry.
let me say one of the reasons why they probably do not have the level of active shooter training that you're suggesting is because to do it properly will probably scare the hell out of the children. It will start making them realize you really have a genuine chance of getting shot. Because when you start really getting the proficient, it would remind them this could really happen to you.
Well, I mean, what did we do back in the 50s when it came to when we were in the Cold War with Russia? They did bomb drills. They did like bomb shelter drills and stuff like that. When you live in Tornado Alley, what do the schools do? They go through countless hours of training on how to handle and what you're supposed to do if there's a tornado warning that goes through. It's a scary thing, but in today's day and age, it's something that needs to happen. The
Here,
states need to
here,
come up with the funding to be able to get the schools on board to do that training. And you don't have
I,
to make it really, really scary. The training is more so for the teachers than the students, in my opinion, because the kids are when they're put in that type of situation, I don't think there's really any amount of training that you can do with a kid that's going to take the fear away when a gunman shows up. You
well,
need the teachers who are armed to be ready for
Jay
that
Walker in the
situation.
comments. Okay, Jay Walker in the comments asked a real good question, which keeps coming up. Where's the money for all this stuff going to come from?
The money well, I mean, if the government can come up with $70 billion to give to Ukraine on a whim, surely they've got some funds laying around to go towards school safety.
I tell you, I can't get through a conversation without somebody bringing up the Ukraine money. I don't know, but I would. I
I
don't know
mean,
where else to go with. Go
what's
ahead.
more I'll ask you this. What's more important to Americans at this point? Spending like hundreds of billions of dollars on NASA for us to get a couple of pictures of space every couple of years, or the safety of the children of the American people? What's more important, us sending money to foreign countries when we have so many problems here in the United States, not just the safety of kids, but infrastructure that's in terrible need of repair? I mean, I could go on and on. Really no end to my thought on government overspending. Like they spend so much money on so much ridiculous crap. There's money there.
Yeah.
The money is there that could be used for these type of programs. It's just
Yeah.
they want a quick fix. They say, oh, well, let's just take away the guns. Well, that doesn't really solve the problem. It's a Band-Aid.
Okay, here's one thing I don't understand, and I am I'm a concealed carrier myself. But one thing I don't understand is that you have, for the most part, two primary trains of thought. You got the left saying take away the guns. You got the right saying nothing stops a bad guy with a gun more than a good guy with a gun, or armed teachers, or what. So the left suggestion is take away the guns. The right is add more guns to the mix. At the end of the day, the right is saying that none of the left wing solutions will work. And because we've never tried any of the left wing solutions, we don't know. We have tried the right wing solutions, which, if you notice in America, more and more guns have constantly been added to the mix, and the amount of shootings are going up. So I don't know if taking away the guns will work or not, but I know adding more to the mix does not seem to be working.
I'd say that's kind of an unfair argument, considering that I don't think there's ever been, at least in my knowledge, any of the school shootings that has happened hasn't been at a school where there's been adequately trained teachers with firearms and has been trained in active shooter type training. Like most of these school shootings that seem to happen, they seem to happen in areas where there's very much a lack of training. If there is even anyone that's armed, it might be a person that has their own personal firearm or whatever, but anybody can go buy a gun. It's
Wait.
completely different.
You do realize, well, in Parkland, Florida, during that shooting, they had a armed cop on the premises, and he cowered and did not even go in there. That was Parkland, Florida, a few years ago. And then in Uvalde, you had 19 armed personnel that did not. So the notion that it's never happened at a school where there was trained personnel is not true. I would submit to you, Parkland and Uvalde had armed personnel there while the killer was still alive, and they stood down.
Okay. Well, in Uvalde, I would say that 100% that whole thing needs to be investigated to a T, because the response of the officers and the officer that was in charge, who says he didn't realize he was in charge. Let me tell you something. If the cops are trained on active shooters, they're going to know who's the on-scene commander in a given situation. There's not going to be somebody standing around. Oh, well, I don't know. I'm the highest ranking person here, but I don't know who's in charge. Like, something went terribly wrong with the police, and the police were at fault for what happened at that school. Because I can tell you from experience, when it comes to an active shooter situation, if you get a call, there's an active shooter in a school. At least in the military, the way we're trained for an active shooter, first two police officers on scene enter the building, find, neutralize the threat. The second or the third or fourth person that shows up on scene, that person's the on-scene commander until somebody of a higher rank comes to relieve them. So for them to go to the school where they've been called that there was an active shooter or a shooter with a gun inside a school that they knew was in session, their first reaction should have been, first two officers on scene enter the building. Go
Okay,
neutralize the threat.
I get your point. I'm just simply saying, if the cop in both Parkland and Uvalde can make that much of a mistake with their training, the notion that teachers won't do the same thing. And also keep in mind, in regards to the Buffalo shooting at the supermarket, where the guy went and shot up a bunch of African Americans, they had an armed retired cop there as well who engaged the subject, and the subject was wearing body armor, absorbed the rounds because he was hit, fired back at the cop, and killed the cop. So even if this
You're
happens in
talking about
environments like
the retired guy who was getting a patent pass for a water powered engine, hydrogen powered engine. Talking about that guy?
what? No, I don't know what you're talking about now.
The retired, I'm pretty sure it's that guy, the retired police officer or security guard, whatever it was, that got shot in Buffalo at the
Okay.
little market or whatever. The kid drove 200 miles and randomly
Yeah.
selected a
What are you
market to
talking
go
about?
shoot it up.
What are you talking about? Patents and engines for?
The cop, the guy, I'm pretty positive. I mean, somebody in the in the comments can correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure that was the guy that was on the news like just weeks before the shooting that had been working on getting a patent approved for a hydrogen powered engine for a vehicle. And within weeks of him working on getting that patent, he randomly gets shot in a mini
He
mart in
didn't.
Buffalo by some kid who
He
drove
didn't
200 miles.
randomly get shot. He was executed by a racist killer. What do you mean? He randomly got shot.
Well, by that I mean the whole premise for it to me seems a pretty ridiculous. I mean,
Okay.
you could we could debate that or not, but I mean it's my thought process on that. But as far as for the schools, what you were talking about, I mean, there's a lot of people that get training and a lot of people that chicken out when it comes down to it. And you know, the problem we have is we have a lot of brand new police officers on the force that aren't getting proper training, or they don't have somebody to get like a senior officer to ride around and get on the job training with, to be able to teach them a lot of things and to be able to learn what they need to learn. A lot of cops are just getting tired of all the stress
But
of the job.
exactly, and that's here's what I don't understand. If you're willing to admit cops can do that, and that's their entire job is to protect the public. If they can make those mistakes, how is a third grade teacher expected to do better?
Because they're already inside facing the possibility of being shot and dying. The cop who's a coward outside the building that decides not to go in, he's not in any immediate threat. If you're a teacher and you're inside your classroom with your students and there's a gunman outside the door and you've been trained and armed, best believe that guy is going to use his weapon to try to defend himself and the kids that are in there. Whether a cop, cowards outside the building, or bad police decisions are made outside the building where the gunman is not currently, and they're not currently in any kind of immediate danger. I mean, you're basically talking about fighting for your life or deciding to go into a potential deadly situation being outside the situation. I mean,
I
like,
get your
if
point.
I would, if it were me, like, let's say in my instance, if I was a teacher working in a school and I had the possibility to go through the training to become one of the qualified teachers that could carry a firearm, one, I'm going to try to get as much training as possible. Two, I'm going to make sure that I have proper safety around the kids. I'm not going to keep it anywhere where the kids can access it, blah, 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 so on and so forth. But I'd rather be in there with a way to defend myself than be waiting on the cops to show up, and whether they do or don't handle the situation correctly. I
I guess
mean,
I get what you're saying. I guess the point where everybody's looking at having the right to defend themselves and defend the children in class. I get that, but it's the responsibility that comes with carrying a firearm, the liability of making a mistake and things like that, which is why I believe a lot of teachers do not want to take this on. It's great if you get into an engagement and you have a way to protect yourself. That's fine. But that's the minuscule chance that's going to happen. All of the responsibility and all of these other things, dealing with bad students, this is the stuff that's more likely to happen. The chance of you getting into an ongoing engagement with an assailant is like lottery odds. But the chances of a student seeing your gun or you getting in a fight, this stuff has a much greater chance of happening. And that's why I think a lot of teachers, all of the teachers that I've heard, most of the people I'm hearing that are fans of Army teachers are not teachers themselves. When you talk to the actual teachers, it seems like overwhelmingly most of them are not a big fan of this. I'll give you the last word, though. I got to move it on.
all right, I get it. I mean, I would say this: no teacher should be forced to carry a firearm or go through firearm safety training if they do not choose to do so. You may have a school and have no teachers that want to go through the training. So
Right.
be it. You can't force somebody to go through firearm safety training and knowingly handle a deadly weapon if they don't feel comfortable with it. You just can't do it. You can't force somebody to do it, and you can't expect somebody, who doesn't have the wherewithal to want to, handled something that, can cause serious bodily harm like that. You just can't. I would say what they should do is say, okay, we're going to offer this program. If any teachers would like to volunteer to become an armed, teacher, armed personnel within the school, we'll offer to put you through this firearm safety training and this and active shooter training to get you prepared for this type of situation, to better equip you for that. If you don't want to, you don't have to. I mean, I would think that out of an entire school of teachers, in most places, you'll probably find one, maybe two volunteers. Maybe not. In a lot of inner cities, maybe you won't. But for them to at least have that option, and if you don't want, the schools that have no teachers that want to volunteer for that, they could bring in an outside personnel like, a veteran or somebody who's familiar with firearms, who's gone through extensive training, that wouldn't require a lot of, of retraining to be able to, fill that type of situation. Like, not every school would need it. The schools that have a teacher that or a couple of teachers willing to volunteer can do that, or the state could opt to hire somebody from an outside source. I really don't think, as much as I've heard the argument of just putting veterans to work or having veterans volunteer, like, yeah, it sounds like a good idea to not have to really pay for somebody to come in and work as a security guard in a school, but there's a lot of insurance liabilities. I've worked for a lot of security companies. You can't have somebody come in and work out volunteer basis as an armed security guard without having the proper insurance involved. So I think that is completely out of the question to just have volunteers come in. There's got to be, a system set up for that, because there's a lot of insurance involved in firearms.
All right. Well, I appreciate you coming through, man.
I appreciate you having me on here again. I really love watching your videos, and I like to jump in from time to time, but you have a lovely evening.
Absolutely. Always a pleasure. Okay.
Go into the box real quick. We'll put 52 Cent on. 52 Cent never disappoints. Listen.
End of the day, my biggest issue is the liability. If you're an employer and you take upon this responsibility, that is a hell of a lot of liability. Keep in mind, and hang on, 52 Cent, keep in mind, if something kicks off and you do not do what every parent thought you should do, your life could be in danger. There's no denying that. If you get frightened, for instance, if you're the designated firearm carrier at school, or even if you have no official duty to protect children, but the parents know you're armed and you cower or you take off and run, and some of those children are harmed, your life as a teacher is going to be in danger. Those parents are going to want blood. It's a hell of a lot of opportunity to take on to protect somebody else's children. I just can't see how these teachers getting paid $70,000 a year or less are going to want to take this opportunity on. Now, it's a difference if I can carry a firearm concealed to protect myself. Yeah, a lot of teachers may be down with that. But knowing that I'm expected to protect somebody else's kid, knowing that parent may snap if I don't do the job the way they thought it should be done, I don't want that. I don't want anything to do with that responsibility. 52 Cent, go ahead. Good evening.
I would rather be a teacher that has a pistol in my drawer when a shooter comes in the building than be a teacher that doesn't have one.
Okay, that's fine. But I'm just simply saying, do you want to take on the responsibility and have to deal with a bunch of grieving parents that do not believe you handled the situation the right way? Let's say you take a shot and you miss and hit somebody's kid.
I'm the wrong guy. I'm the wrong guy to ask about kids because I don't really much care for them. So I'm not gonna be. I'm not a school bus driver because you'd be behind me seeing kids flying out windows. I would not make a school bus driver or a teacher. No, you keep your little snot muffins.
You
No.
never disappoint. And you know something, you never disappoint. But you know something that's interesting? You brought up a whole nother aspect. I've been saying constantly, a lot of my 2A supporters always say that if you ban guns, the criminal will find another way. And I was talking about if you secure schools, the criminals will find another way. And I was talking about recess and after school meeting places. You pointed out a huge soft target: school buses.
Oh,
School
yeah.
buses. You know where they're stopping at, all of that. You could easily just blast the hell out of a school bus. The rounds will go right through it. I'm just simply saying criminals will find another way, and that would have to apply to mass school shooters as well.
I think they'd ought to have giant sticky pads in the doors that once the doors are shut and the kids are in class, the sticky pads come in. Then when they step in them, they're stuck like a mouse.
Okay, you're going crazy tonight. I don't know
No,
where to go with that.
what I don't understand is I've been seeing all these videos of teachers sticking plastic molded chairs into the doors to lock them. Why aren't the schools built more like prisons where class is in session, all the doors are locked?
Do
Now
you
the
really want our children to go to schools that look like Sing Sing or
No, but there's nothing against having electronic bolt locks that when the school's in session, the teachers can open them, but the teacher has to be the one to open them. They can't be opened from the outside. So to have safety locks on the doors and not have windows to where perpetrators can see into the classroom would be an easy fix.
do you realize how bad this looks to the free world that our
I
kids are
don't.
in schools that I
Okay,
know you don't care.
now I throw
I
back the argument to you. What do you care about, looking bad or protecting the kids? These lunatics that are doing these school shootings are exactly that, lunatics. I never thought about going and shooting up a school. You've probably never thought about it. Normal people don't think that way. So you have to
uh,
take abnormal solutions to fix the abnormal problems.
okay. I don't understand why this is only happening in the United States. That's the problem. I guess where I'm
Because
really.
we're too worried about being queer and killing babies, and our focus isn't on the right things. Our focus isn't on unison. Our focus isn't on family. Our focus is on me, me, me. What can you get me? If it don't benefit me, I don't care. That's what, when Ozzy and Harriet went off the air, our country started going to shit. I swear to God, it's true.
I don't know if I can agree with that. I listen. I have never heard of an LGBT mass shooter. I I don't know if I can agree with you on that.
That's because glitter cannons don't kill people. And even with a Prius, it'd be hard to do a hit and run. It would be hard.
You are welcome here anytime. You never disappoint me.
No, there is no simple solution to figuring out who's going to be the mass rapist, who's going to shoot up a school, who's going to murder their family. There is no easy way to figure that out. So you've got to take protections that may seem overboard, but since we can't root out those morons, you got to take protective measures. If teachers having a gun could save a classroom of kids, then teachers ought to have one. I mean,
And if they make a mistake and shoot the wrong child or another teacher by accident, what do we do?
bury the child. What else can you do? You can't do nothing. I think the deterrent alone of people knowing that guns are full of desk drawers or schools are full of desk drawers with guns in them would make a difference to who's going to go in and shoot up the place.
All right, fair enough. I have nowhere to turn after talking to you as usual. As usual, my cheeks are hurting from laughter. Look, I gotta go. I gotta wrap it up. I'm getting to the end of the program.
I'm running for
I don't know what
president
to do
in
with you, man.
2024. I've got solutions. I need your vote. Can I count on you?
I need to hear those solutions because you're scaring me.
Well, we got it. Just like you said, We haven't tried the liberal solutions. You haven't tried mine yet either.
I'm afraid of your shit. I don't know what to think. I'd have to really sit down and hear what you had to say. I'm real scared to hear your solutions.
Well, the first solution is we all just need to give everybody a hug and get along with one another. That's the first solution.
That's a
We
pipe
can't
dream. What's the next one?
we can't even get that right. Exactly. We can't
No.
get that right. So we're doomed.
Okay. All right, I gotta go, man. I
All
gotta
right,
go. I hate to
brother.
wrap
Have a
it up
good
so soon,
night.
but I
Love
gotta
you,
go.
man.
All right, catch you next time. Okay, folks. I gotta do this. Unfortunately, I gotta wrap it up a little sooner than I would like to. 52 Cent, I always love hearing from. Nobody gives a shit if we agree or not. That's not the aim here. The aim here is to get healthy dialogue going back and forth. I make it clear free speech is paramount. I always let folks get their points across. My primary audience is MAGA. You see what my name is. So who gives a shit whether we agree or not? I love having a dialogue. It's been real good talking to you guys as usual. 7 p.m. is when I'm normally on here. I was a little bit late this evening. Catch you guys tomorrow. It's your boy Tim, the handsome liberal. You guys have a good night.